Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. We're going to be starting here shortly at 7:30. So thanks for joining early. Please share the link, like, and subscribe, and join us in the chat as well. We will be taking questions throughout the night. We have a great show lined up, a great guest with Representative Ken DeGraaf to talk about civil asset forfeiture reform. And we're going to be talking about a lot of legislation, some really interesting bills going through our state legislature here this week. So look forward to talking to you here soon. We're going to be starting at 7:30. Please share the link out and we'll talk. See a lot of people joining on YouTube here. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to get started here at 7:30. Just started the live stream a little early so people can share the link out there. So please like, share, subscribe, and join us in the live chat on YouTube. We'll talk to you soon. We'll be starting here in just a couple minutes. So hang in there. We got a great show tonight, great live stream, lots of interesting things to talk about, and a great guest with Representative Ken DeGraaf joining us. Well, hello, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon Wark from Free State, Colorado. Thanks for joining us for our legislative live stream. We also have Michael Vance joining us here, the legislative director for the Libertarian Party of Colorado. Michael, how are you today?
I'm doing well. It's been quite it's been quite the day, so we're looking forward to talking about these bills.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about. There's so many crazy bills going through our legislature. I mean, how can you people keep up with it? How does this government expect to maintain a democracy, a republic, whatever you want to call it, but a representative government where the people are supposed to be informed? You know,
Absolutely.
it's yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. I think you're completely on the right track. I mean, it's extremely difficult to figure out what is going on with everything they plan to do in Colorado. As we've talked about before, 600 bills passed last year, 700 were introduced. Uh, in only 120 days. So how can you truly keep on top of everything that's going on? I mean, you can really only get a fine little taste of what they're doing with each bill that gets introduced, and really go from there. Hope you can kill as many as possible. That being said, it's not over. The fight's not over. We're still here, and we're going to keep on fighting, and hope to inform you as much as we possibly can.
110%. Yeah, part of the reason we do these live streams is to encourage people to participate in your legislative process, know who your state rep, your state senators are, communicate with them about important bills coming through. So let's jump in. We got a lot to talk about and a great guest. So let's go for it here, Michael.
Fantastic.
Perfect. So here we go here. So the agenda for tonight, we're going to start now here at 7:30 talking about the significant bills of the week. Now, these are bills being heard in committee hearings, and committees are where the public can provide testimony, where you can speak, use your voice to talk about what's going on in the legislature. So we really encourage people to go to committee hearings. You can do it remotely over Zoom. Check out freestatecolorado.com/testify. There's a guide there, updated information about how you can testify in a bill at the state legislature. So definitely check that out. But really want you to encourage you to participate and get involved. Then at 8 p.m., we're going to have Representative Ken DeGraaf to talk about his Criminal Asset Forfeiture Act. Very interesting piece of legislation, House Bill 1067. And then after that, at about 8:30, we'll start on bills that we've been tracking. So bills that maybe haven't been assigned to a committee yet, haven't been heard, or even have been killed already, but nonetheless important bills we want to get you informed on. So how does that sound, Michael?
That sounds great. I'm ready to get into it.
Awesome. And we will be monitoring the chat here on YouTube. So great to see a lot of great people there. Mike Dickerson, Britta Horn, Motorhome Mike, Bennett Rutledge, E. We got some great people in the chat, and we'll be taking your questions and comments as we go along.
Absolutely. And I just want to say really quickly, it was fantastic to see some of the people in the chat. Britta, it was great to meet you. Bennett, it was fantastic to see you give your testimony on Tuesday night. A lot of great people were Heroes for Liberty that night. Unfortunately, that bill passed committee, but we're not going to stop fighting.
100%, 100%. So let's talk about some of the bills of the week. So these are bills being heard in committee this week that you may have missed, but you have an opportunity as a citizen of Colorado to speak, to have your voice heard, and encourage the legislators to kill the bill or to pass it. So let's jump over to Tuesday is going to be our first committee hearing we want to talk about. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. This is not an exhaustive list. There's a lot going on Monday, but we have a limited amount of time, and we're going to just talk about some of the highlights of the week. So on Tuesday, this is going to be really interesting. The Senate Committee on Ethics is going to meet. I expect this to be a very interesting committee hearing on Tuesday, February 4th, 8 a.m., Senate Committee Room 357. It says agenda to be determined, but I think a lot of us are suspecting that this is going to be the Ethics Committee investigation or hearing on Senator Sonia Jaquez Lewis, a Democrat who was stripped of her committee appointments, who had multiple allegations and claims against her from her legislative staff. So it'd be really interesting to see if that's what's going to happen on Tuesday morning. So keep an eye on that one, folks. That's going to be one of the more interesting committees. Not that you can provide testimony or speak, but nonetheless, something to pay attention to. Perfect. And then we're talking about Tuesday, upon adjournment of the House, and House Committee Room 112 is the Health and Human Services Committee. Now, this is a bill that flew under my radar, but thankfully we have Pam Long over at the Colorado Health Choice Alliance, who's been raising the alarm on House Bill 1027 to update disease control statutes. So, why is this bill concerning? What does it do? Well, let's take a look. There's a lot of things in this bill about disease control. Uh, the thing that concerns a lot of people, though, is the immunization requirements. So this is a vaccination requirements, definitely a big subject in this post-COVID world. But right now, Colorado statute allows a 14-day period for students and their families, their parents, to decide what they want to do with immunization requirements. Do they want to opt out? Do they want to get immunized? Do they want to do something a little bit different? Well, this bill, the reason we're sounding the alarm on it is because it would repeal the 14-day period within which a student whose certificate of immunization is not up to date to comply with immunization requirements to attend school, and instead directs the State Board of Education to establish a timeline for compliance that is no shorter than 14 days after notice of noncompliance is received. So, what Health Choice Alliance is saying that this new requirement, if signed into law, would create a high pressure decision to vaccinate today or get expelled. So, obviously, very concerning. Michael, I know you're a father, a parent there. What do you think about this bill?
I'm extremely concerned about this because you're completely eliminating parents' choice. You're also you're also taking away the ability for a lot of people to make the best decision for their kid. There are a lot of diseases that can be impacted or allow a where a vaccine will allow for an immunoresponse to occur. And sometimes for some people, you can a lot of people, particularly young individuals, can experience fatal reactions to vaccines. So at the end of the day, it should be left to the parents to decide what is best for their kid. Nobody's gonna know what is best for yourself or your own family quite like a parent does, a parent will, no matter who they are, because nobody is around that individual quite like the parent. So nobody should have a there's nobody who should have first choice for what is best for your family besides a mother and a father.
110% there, Michael. And I encourage people, if they want more information, find Colorado Health Choice Alliance on Facebook. So check them out there. You can see in their comments on one of their posts from January 13th, and I'm sure it's in other places as well, but they kind of talk about their concerns with this bill. But nonetheless, bad bill, very concerned about it. This is so if you are an advocate for health choice and maybe have some concerns over forced vaccinations in schools, this committee hearing might be one you want to testify in, you want to speak to, at least reach out to the bill sponsors, the committee members. So please do that. That's this Tuesday, February 4th, upon adjournment of the House Committee Room 112, the House Health and Human Services Committee.
And there's a
So let's
lot
move.
of oh, one last thing
Go
I
ahead.
want to say is there is some hope. I know in the past, the before the gun bans in particularly House Bill 23-1230, the highest testified bill was a vaccine choice bill in the committee. It got killed, and then they tried again, and they snuck it through at I believe the next year. But at that time, they were really trying to limit what parents could do with vaccinations, and they were really trying to force vaccinations on a lot of people. And I'm blanking on the bill's name on whenever that was, but I know that a lot of parents really spoke out and really cried out for parental choice and for the Colorado legislature to protect parental choice, and and they were able to be successful. So as long as we are able to come together and really push back, we can win. But we're gonna rely on you, on every single one of you to really push back against this nasty bill. So appreciate every one of you.
100%, 100%. So let's move on. Also Tuesday, House Committee Room 107 at 1:30 p.m. at the House Judiciary Committee. Now, folks, we're flying through these because we got a lot to cover, and we got Representative Ken DeGraaf joining us at 8 o'clock. So if you want more information, just go to the legislative website, type these bill numbers in. But looks like a good bill, Michael, from freshman legislative representative Kelty. Really excited about this one to protect property rights. House Bill 1104, prohibiting squatting. So really hope people can show some support for this bill. Squatting, we see some horror stories out of California and other places. I'm sure it's happening here in Colorado, but nonetheless, it looks like a good bill to protect property owners and prevent people from squatting and just taking over that property.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I'm really excited that uh, a Liberty Pledge signer came out with such a strong bill. I mean, I know a lot of people might not necessarily like the Liberty Pledge. I mean, I'm really proud of the Liberty Pledge and what we've done, and this is a reason why we felt comfortable having Rebecca Kelty sign the Liberty Pledge is because of bills right here. I mean, I can't think of anything that's going to help protect property rights, and one of the foundations of libertarianism is the right to property and right to private property, and this is a fantastic example of protecting human liberty through HB 251104.
Definitely. And it's so important to testify in support of good bills to show these liberty leaders down at our state house and senate that the public supports them. We need the liberty community supporting good bills, and shoot Rebecca Kelty an email. You can get on the legislative website, tell her thank you. It's really important that we build this camaraderie and we build these alliances. So great information there. So if this is of interest to you, that's Tuesday, 1:30 p.m., House Committee Room 107. And of course, you can testify remotely.
And one last thing I want to say about that bill is if you see the only sponsor of this bill is Representative Kelty. If you know of a senator that might be a good option to help sponsor this bill beyond the committee phase, so that way it can get on advance from the House to the Senate, reach out, let them know. Maybe they need a little bit of public encouragement to sign on to be a prime sponsor.
100%. And I see it in the chats. Fly Pilot Explorer says, are the Democrats for or against the squatting prohibited bill? I would assume they're against it. Of course, the committee hearing will really tell us the rest of the story. So we'll keep an eye on that one for sure. Moving on to Tuesday, the Senate Finance Committee meeting at 2 p.m. in Senate Committee Room 357. Senate Bill 56, the reduced premium cigar excise tax rate, and Senate Bill 72, regulation of kratom. So some very interesting bills here. On the cigar one, of course, this is Tom Sullivan, the commie Tommy himself, the man who wants to ban you from being able to prevent you, outlaw you, throw you in jail if you want to defend your family. This guy's no friend of liberty, but nonetheless, he loves cigars. And this is just such an example of this hypocrisy where he wants to cut taxes for the cigars he loves, but nonetheless wants to put everybody else in jail if they want to own the wrong type of gun. So I would have to say it's a good bill on its face, but nonetheless, there you go. Perfect. So Senate Bill 56, and then also in the House Senate Finance Committee is Senate Bill 72. Now, this one is really interesting. Senate Bill 72 is the regulation of kratom. Now, I know, Michael, you and I and other people in the liberty community were very concerned about this bill. Maybe we still are, but it wasn't quite what I expected when I heard about this bill initially. So this bill basically creates this new scheme where there's regulation of kratom for manufacturing, packaging, labeling, and distributing in the state of Colorado. So, of course, we're liberty minded individuals, libertarians, so opposed to this bill on its face. But nonetheless, I did reach out to the bill sponsor, one of them, Senator Byron Pelton, who is very pro liberty in many instances. And he responded back to me and said that the Global Kratom Coalition is asking for this bill. Apparently, there is some black market kratom out there that is creating problems. Now, this is from Senator Pelton. For instance, babies were being born addicted to the high potency kratom. So the Global Kratom Coalition just wants to make sure the stuff that's being sold is safe and not on the black market. I'd love to get your opinion on that, Michael.
I mean, from a pragmatic standpoint, I see where they're coming from. Uh, it sounds to me like they're attempting to add regulations that might prevent from the outright banning of kratom. I don't want to see kratom banned. I mean, there's a lot of fantastic benefits that a lot of people have, particularly people who have struggle with a lot of over the counter and prescription pharmaceuticals. So if they could potentially use kratom, something that's a bit more natural, as a way to deal with a lot of pain that they have on a day-to-day basis, I mean, that's a fantastic option. But still, from a liberty perspective, I do not want to see the government coming in trying to tell people who are creative manufacturers what they can and can't do. Another issue that we have with regulations are regulations create overburdening issues that lead to situations where we have black market kratom. So I kind of wonder, do we have a situation in Colorado where the where kratom is overregulated to the point where we have a black market? Um, so I'm very concerned. I definitely don't want to see the full on out banning of kratom in Colorado. I know that some people have discussed it in the past, especially on a national level as well. So um, I I'm thinking there might be better ways to um, deal with the issues that they are seeing from a possibly a more liberty-minded perspective than this bill right here. So I understand the concerns people have, but I don't necessarily want to see anybody. Um, I don't want to see more intensive regulations that lead to a bigger black market where which leads to the banning of kratom altogether. Because we all know the drug war is a failed relic of the past, and I know a recent Rasmussen poll said only 7% of Americans believe that the drug war worked. So let's try to find a better way to let's try to find a better way to handle the situation that these legislators are concerned with.
Yeah, definitely. I still think it's a bad bill. I really appreciate Senator Pelton reaching back out, responding so quickly to talk about how the industry is supporting this bill. People want protections in the industry for their own kratom manufacturing. But nonetheless, we see this kind of market capture where you have one line of businesses going to our state government requesting specific regulations that are going to benefit them at the expense of maybe some of their competitors. So unfortunately, we saw the same thing with the cannabis bills back in 2017. We saw some of the worst anti marijuana legislation passed since legalization. But nonetheless, the industry supported it because they wanted to crack down on the quote unquote gray market, which was potentially eating into their profits. So, you see these bills, still a bad bill. Don't want to beat up Senator Pelton on this because I think he's might be acting from a perspective that I can understand. But nonetheless, 72 bad bill being heard Tuesday in the Senate Finance Committee room 357. So if anybody out there is a Kratom supporter, Kratom user, this is one you might want to pay attention to. All right. So also on Tuesday is a busy day down at the Capitol here. A bill that's going to be killed, we can basically just tell by looking at it. Senate Bill 57, non-citizen voter registration cancellation from Senator Baisley and Representative Chris Richardson. So this bill, as you may expect, voting, people who are here illegally or people who are non-citizens voting in elections has been a real concern for a lot of people across Colorado for many years now. This bill would cancel the voter registrations of persons not legally qualified to vote who are non-citizens. So it would require the executive directors of the Department of Revenue, the Department of Public Health and Environment, and the Department of Corrections to furnish the Secretary of State with regular reports of all persons who are not citizens based on existing information sharing agreements, requiring the state court administrator to furnish the Secretary of State with regular reports of all persons who report as ineligible to serve as jurors because they are not citizens, and requiring the cancellation of the voter registrations of the persons included in the reports. So, I mean, it sounds like a good bill, right? I think it's a good pro liberty bill, really, to restrict voting to only citizens. That's how it should be. I think legally that's what it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, there's this little bit of a gray area with automatic voter registration when you get your driver's license that if somebody doesn't necessarily admit or opt out of this by claiming they're an illegal alien, which who would want to admit that in this day and age for fear of deportation, then they might accidentally, quote unquote, accidentally be registered to vote. So, getting non citizens off the voter rolls, I think, is a good thing for sure. But nonetheless, Michael, what do you think about this bill?
I think this is a fantastic bill that ensures that ensures election integrity. I mean, one of the things that we're proud of that we did recently is we sued Jenna Griswold, the Secretary of State, for all the craziness that she did with with the releasing of the BIOS passwords for 600 voting machines. Absolutely absurd. It was an absolutely absurd mishap on part of Jenna Griswold and the Secretary of State. They left those passwords on a public database for months for anybody to access, and it wasn't until after it was found out by the public that they pulled those passwords off of the internet. In fact, the most egregious thing I would say is that they left up the passwords for multiple days after they found out about the data breach. And at the same time, Peters, a Republican county clerk from Mesa County, is currently in jail right now for whistleblowing and auditing her own machines in her own county. So, and yet this lady does something even worse, and she's walking free today. So, I would say that encapsulate everything you need to know about Colorado's state government right now.
Yeah,
And
definitely. So yeah, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, so something like this, I think, is much needed. Um, and if this wasn't happening, this bill wouldn't exist. So we absolutely need to do something. And I honestly don't think anything's going to happen. But as you said, but I think it's a fantastic bill.
Definitely. So if you care about election integrity, if you care about the validity of elections, which we all should, Senate Bill 57 might be one you can speak on this coming Tuesday. So check it out. Tuesday, State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, Senate Committee Room 352 at 2 p.m. So definitely encourage people to speak in support of this bill, reach out to the bill sponsors and thank them, and try and reach out to the committee members, put some pressure on them, let them know people are watching and that this is a bill they should be voting for. So that's what we got for Tuesday. Moving on to Wednesday. Now, I know this is a bill that one of our friends in the chat, Rich Guggenheim, is really passionate about. So this is Wednesday, February 5th, 1:30 p.m., House Committee Room 112, House Bill 1068, the Malpractice Ensures Gender-Affirming Care Minors, from Representative Scott Bottoms and Senator Mark Baisley. So, very interesting bill. Currently, a medical malpractice issuer is prohibited from increasing premiums or refusing to issue, cancel, terminate, or refuse to renew a medical malpractice insurance policy. But this bill would permit an insurer to take prohibited actions against an applicant or named insured, including an individual healthcare professional or business, or against a healthcare facility that use basically anybody who's involved in gender affirming healthcare services, as they call it. So, if people are doing this gender surgery on children, people under 18 years old who can't necessarily consent to what's going on, this bill would, according to Rich Guggenheim, allow insurance providers, doctors, and medical practitioners to take adverse action against doctors who are sued for harm in providing this gender affirming care. Rich Guggenheim says he also has 14D transitioners testifying on this bill. So if you can just come and support them in sharing their stories. So really big bill there. House Bill 1068. Definitely would love to see people down there at the Health and Human Services Committee speaking in favor of this bill. I'm surprised it wasn't set to the Kill Committee, but that's this Wednesday, 1:30 p.m. Definitely, if you care about protecting children from this dangerous gender ideology, this is a bill you might want to participate in. But yes, it would potentially put some of these doctors on the hook for doing these horrible things to children.
Hey, and if you aren't following Rich online, it's 5280 based homo, which cracks me up all the time when I read his uh, Twitter handle. I refuse to call it X. I will gladly dead name that. But yeah, fantastic Twitter handle, Rich. Go ahead and give him a follow if you can.
Definitely. So yeah, very interesting bill there. I think we have time for one more before our guest joins us here. So 1068, a good bill to protect minors and potentially help some kids out and hold some of these people accountable. So Thursday, jumping over to Thursday on February 6th, upon adjournment of the state Senate and the Senate Business, Labor, and Technology Committee, Senate Bill 33. Really do not like this bill. Prohibit new liquor licensed drugstores. So, as you know, as everybody knows, Colorado has somewhat recently allowed the sale of wine and beer, full strength beer, gas stations, grocery stores, pharmacies, etc. Now, this has hurt small mom and pop liquor stores, of course, because there's more competition. These grocery stores can offer bigger discounts, they're buying in bigger quantities. So, I feel really bad for a lot of these small family owned businesses that are struggling. However, this bill creates a new prohibition, moving Colorado in the wrong direction to prevent new liquor licensed drugstores. Now, grocery stores use that same license to sell alcohol. So basically, this would prevent new grocery store licenses, gas station licenses, all of that, places that sell food from creating a new liquor license here. And a good little tip here, you can click on the fiscal note on these bills, and sometimes they give you a little bit more details without all the legalese there. But just to read that, it says the bill prohibits state and local licensing authorities from issuing any new liquor licensed drugstore licenses. Current licensees may still renew their license. And then it also puts certain restrictions on there for them to transfer it and sell it. So, yeah, bad stuff potentially can result in less grocery stores. So, as the background says here, most holders of these licenses are large grocery stores that have a pharmacy on premises. There are currently 36 of these licenses in the state, and that fiscal note assumes will continue to renew their license. So it would prevent competition. It would prevent some of these places with pharmacies, like most grocery stores have, from being able to now sell alcohol. So a bad prohibitionary bill. The spirit of it might be right to try and help out some of these small businesses, but nonetheless, new prohibitions and restricting licensing over something that really shouldn't even be licensed, if you ask me. But what do you think on this one, Michael?
Oh, I agree. This is just a little bit of government overreach, like we're very used to seeing within the Colorado legislature. Uh, I get that people want to protect they want to kind of keep things the status quo as much as possible, but at the same time, a business needs to adapt and evolve, or it's going to die. And this is just the free market kind of working its course on a proposition years ago that was passed by the voters. I believe it was what 2016 when we passed or when we as the citizens of Colorado allowed the allowed grocery stores and other stores to start selling liquor. Uh, so this is something that we, the people of Colorado, wanted, and now the legislature's coming in and trying to stop what we said we wanted.
Yeah, and just to kind of point out, I like a lot of these Republican legislators in the state capitol are good liberty leaders. But unfortunately, I've seen Representative Weinberg's name on a few of these things, especially these last 2 years. So just definitely love to have some good pro-liberty outreach to him and help steer him back on the pro-liberty path. Because unfortunately, a bill like this, um, the problem when you have a Republican sponsor a bad bill is then now all of these Democrat legislators will come out and say, oh, it was a bipartisan bill. It was a bipartisan bill. And you'll see it in their campaign material. You'll see it in the media. You'll see it everywhere that this was a bipartisan bill. And that really protects them. It protects them from some of the criticism that they otherwise could have. So, Representative Weinberg, I wish he'd pull his name off this bill and, pay a little bit more attention to some of these bad ones there. So, very unfortunate. But yeah, unfortunately, the liquor licensing laws, I think, are still kind of antiquated. There's still a lot of bad ones, old ones in Colorado statute that probably should be repealed. We're in 2025 now. Prohibition on the sale of alcohol ended 100 years ago. We need to kind of move forward to a more pro-freedom perspective, if you ask me. But if they want to help out some of these local liquor stores or mom and pop liquor stores, all they'd have to do is allow them to do some tastings, allow them to have tastings, allow them to have, different options for them to open up their markets and bring in new customers. Unfortunately, some of these state legislators don't like those things necessarily. They'd rather have more controls, not less. So,
I completely agree. Let's start trying to find innovative ways to bring people to your business instead of relying on the government to stifle competition.
Definitely, definitely. So just before Representative Ken DeGraaf should be joining us here any minute, but just wanted to pull up his bill just to briefly bring it up. So we're going to be talking about House Bill 1067, Criminal Asset Forfeiture Act. So very interested to hear about this. Check it out on the House website. We have Representative Ken DeGraaf joining us just now to talk about his bill to restore some freedom, to basically eliminate civil asset forfeiture in Colorado, is how I understand it. Representative Ken DeGraaf, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Can hear you, cannot see you.
Interesting. All right.
Hmm.
Well, oh, there we go. How about that?
So,
Nope, not yet.
It took mine a few seconds too when I joined today, so it could just
Oh,
be Zoom.
there we go. Perfect. I think you're popping in there.
There
there
we
we
go.
go.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Representative Ken DeGraaf, for taking time out of your schedule to talk to us today. You're definitely one of Colorado's liberty leaders down there, fighting the good fight for our constitutional rights and our God-given rights. And we'd love to hear about House Bill 1067, Criminal Asset
Yes.
Forfeiture Act.
Our self-evident creator endowed rights. Those, the ones that we definitely need to protect. So civil asset forfeiture has been a very interesting problem. I introduced it a couple years ago using the model legislation from Institute for Justice, and yeah, I thought, man, I've always heard about civil asset forfeiture. Here's a model bill. This should be easy. Everybody wants to solve this problem, and uh, and that is just not the case. So the first year it got kind of too many fingers in there, and it just kind of got muddled. The next year we cut it back to just very basic, like it just mainly focused on the criminal conviction, and then at the last minute through the governor's office, that bill was basically kiboshed. So they the someone from the attorney's office on the police side just called me. It's like an hour beforehand. Said, "Hey, really sorry, we just can't, we just can't see this bill working. It's just not gonna. You just can't go and." It's like, well, what amendments do you need? Is there time frame? Is there, anything we can, nope, can't fix it. The governor's office just, it's like, okay, it's the governor. And then right at the same time, when I looked at the timestamps from the texts, other representatives were contacted by the lobbyists for, they were contacted by the lobbyists for the police, and also for the DAs. Just nope, can't fix it, and nope, can't do it. So that's what they heard, and they can't. So I brought it back this year with more of the complete, so it's a coherent, more complete look with the model legislation, and it's been very interesting. The CDACs, but probably the most interesting thing in the testimony last year was when the police they said, well, we can't wait for a conviction. We can't wait for a criminal conviction because that takes too long. Basically, we need the money before we can get a criminal conviction. So I actually use that in my closing remarks that the police just told you why we need this because you know we're we need the money before we can't wait that long for a criminal conviction. So the amount of money shouldn't really change because any money that's got without a criminal conviction should not be got, right? So, and then when you read through the Colorado statutes, it really shouldn't happen, but it does, and it is ultimately it's a system that incentivizes. I don't want to say encourages, but it does incentivize um, uh, exploiting citizens. Now, I talked to because you have two evidentiary standards. One, if you go into criminal court, it's beyond a reasonable doubt because it's the idea that we have is that it's you're presumed innocent as opposed to like some European courts where you're presumed guilty and then you have to prove your innocence. Here, it's incumbent on the police, it's incumbent on law enforcement to prove your guilt. So, and that has to be done beyond reasonable doubt. So that's considered about 98%. You don't have to be 100% sure, but it's got to be pretty close. Well, the evidentiary standard for civil forfeiture is is preponderance of evidence. Now, the prosecuting attorneys were explaining to me the other day some of their safeguards and how some of their processes it moves more towards clear and convincing, which is 75%, but you still would have a 25% gap there with no conviction, where you can walk into court presumed innocent, you can leave court presumed innocent, because court, as far as I know, never finds you absolutely guilty. They don't declare you not guilty. I mean, they declare you not guilty, but they don't declare you innocent. So you could go into court you could go into court presumed innocent, leave court presumed innocent, and then in the civil court next door, find out that 2 months ago you were considered guilty enough that they just took your property. So it's another, which presents another problem with it, because the citizen is actually compelled then to fight a two-front war. You have to fight against the state on the criminal side, because which is obviously going to take more priority, and then on the civil side have to get that. So back in 1996, Bennis v. Michigan, or I can't remember the case right now, but they determined, and the Supreme Court upheld it, that basically if you're going to have your property removed, it's civil court, preponderance of evidence, and no defense attorney. Whereas in the criminal court, it's beyond reasonable doubt, criminal conviction and defense attorney. And that's which is kind of weird, because no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law. It's like, it's all one sentence, but it's, you have beyond reasonable doubt, and then preponderance of evidence. It's like, I'm pretty sure due process would be, the same due process. But like a lawyer friend explained it, it's the process that they consider due. So in civil, they just consider that you're due that. Now, in Cully v. Marshall, a recent case, reading through that, it sounds a lot like the Supreme Court is questioning whether civil asset forfeiture is legal. So that's Gorsuch's opinion in there, asking several times, like, why are we actually doing civil asset forfeiture? We don't really need it, and it creates some serious problems. So there are numerous agencies out there, Institute for Justice being one, that are shopping for, I don't know if you'd say shopping, but they are watching for cases that would be a civil asset forfeiture, because to get that to the Supreme Court, any law firm would love to be the giant killer that took down civil asset forfeiture. So it's interesting. The DAs don't want to change, because they I guess a lot of times they will, because the drug crimes are so low, they just don't prosecute them. But then they, kind of in the deal of, it's like, well, we won't prosecute you, but if you walk away from all this stuff, then we won't prosecute you, because it's just not worth their time. So now they would actually have to prosecute them, but they wouldn't actually, because somebody could still walk away from the material, because if it's abandoned. So they don't want to change. The police don't want to wait. So the county sheriffs of Colorado, they've weighed in and said no. And then the governor doesn't want to offend either one of those. The Democrats won't move without the governor. And then I think too many of the Republicans are, they don't want to be seen as on the wrong side of law enforcement. So my reminder to them is that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. Their purpose is to secure the rights for the individuals, not to make the prosecution or law enforcement easy. Our job is not to make trains run on time. Our job is to secure the rights of individuals.
Now, Rep. DeGraaf, thank you for coming on. I've been watching for a while, and you're one of those guys that's really been putting the screws to a lot of these Democrats in power. It's a lot of fun to watch, and I want to ask you about something later, but about that specifically. But regarding your bill, I really, as soon as Brandon let me know about this bill, I wanted to look more into it, and I'm really excited to see what you guys could potentially do. Definitely want to help you out as much as possible. But how I'm glad you brought up Republicans in the potential support of this bill. We're seeing a little bit of a transition from what Republicans have traditionally kind of supported over the last 20, 30 years to today. What are you seeing on the Republican side in terms of help? Because I know you've had some support, but I know that there's some people that are kind of a little, as you said, a little scared to really fully jump on board to this bill. So I'm kind of curious what you're seeing on the Republican side, and then as well as on the Democratic side, because over the last few years, we've consistently heard about George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, criminal justice reform, even locally here with Elijah McClain.
Mm-hmm.
So my question to you is, what kind of support are you seeing on both sides of the aisle? And how willing are people to help you on the left as well as how willing are people to help you on the right?
Well, I do have on the left, of course, because it is a Democrat supermajority. Well, it's not supermajority anymore. Fortunately, there's enough people showed up to vote to beat the cheat, but we're not there, and so we have there are some Democrats. Last year there were some Democrats. Actually, it was Republicans that killed the bill last year because they were, that it was they saw it as a law and order issue. That the law and order, the experts in law and order were, said, well, this is undoable. So they went with that, and I get that. But again, my reminder to them is that our job as legislators is to also is to secure the rights, is to protect the citizens from the government, not feed them to it, not make it more efficient to consume them. So there is that concern. They don't want to, they're waiting to see because one, there's 700 bills that are going to be coming down, and everybody's going in lots of different directions. So they're relying on the experts, and the experts are the DAs, and the experts are the sheriffs, uh, the county sheriffs for one, and the county sheriff organization. Not all the county sheriffs certainly, but the county sheriffs. The CSOC tends to be a little bit more on the liberal side, which where you'd think that they would be more inclined to, but they're not. They just don't want to change. They don't want to change their methods, and so they'll say, well, there's really not that big of a problem. Well, if you talk to somebody who's had their property seized, then for that person, it's clearly a problem. So on the and then on the Democrat side, I am uh, meeting with there are a couple that are very interested in the bill, and there's just the it's really the politics around it. Like I said, because Jared Polis doesn't want to, he doesn't want to get afoul of the DAs, as far as I understand, and the CSOC. They're the main ones who have weighed in against it. And then the Democrats are very hesitant to do anything that Jared Polis hasn't signed on to or said it's okay. So I think with but now Jared Polis's policy director won't won't meet with me. Just they just want it to go away, and we maintain the status quo. It's like, well, the status quo is that our Fifth and 14th Amendment rights are not being recognized, what I would consider constitutionally, certainly what most people would consider constitutionally. So it's kind of a very interesting dynamic. Does that answer your question, or did I just confuse it for you?
I think being a legislator and trying to deal with all those relationships is incredibly confusing, particularly when you need the help from them at one moment and the other moment you have to call them out for their garbage. So, uh,
Oh yeah, yeah, and that has come up. It's like, well, the offer of deals and stuff like that. And it's like, no, everything is one of. I'm not going to make a deal to get, if you think it's a good bill, you should get on it. and not try to hold another bill hostage. And I've signed on to Democrat bills. If it's a good bill, I'll sign on to it. But if it's a bad bill, then definitely not. So yeah, but I don't want to get into the skeezery of making deals, because that's how you get on bad bills. That's how bad bills become bipartisan. And then the governor says, well, I have, this bill had bipartisan support. Like, no, it had bipartisan support because they were trying to get this other bill passed. And so they, kind of looked the other way on some stuff. And it just doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't sit well.
Wow. Two questions for you here. So you're
Sure.
telling me our libertarian governor, who proclaims our free state of Colorado, had the opportunity last year to get civil asset forfeiture reform passed, but he sent word down to the Democrats in the committee and they killed the bill. So you're telling me our libertarian governor could have gotten civil asset forfeiture reform passed if he really wanted to?
It was actually the Republicans on the committee. So in fairness, there were several Democrats that after the briefing, and they were reluctantly on my side after going through the presentation. And it takes a lot for a Democrat to get on my side. They anything with me on it, they approach as a hostile bill. So I did assure them, it's like, on this bill, I've taken, I just went straight with the bill. I didn't change anything. It's very similar to what New Mexico has, Nebraska has, Maine has implemented. Texas is looking at, they've taken some stuff out, modified other stuff. And like, I just kept it simple, like, to make sure that we have a coherent process. So, I'm hopeful. We've pushed, the bill was supposed to be heard this last week, kind of rushed through, like, let's get it stamped. And then it's, when they come to me and say, well, we kind of want this to go away. And it's like, well, you're kind of sounding like you don't really care about the 15th, Fifth and 14th Amendment rights, and that the citizen, so it's kind of an awkward situation. So, interviews like this help make people aware of what's going on, and hopefully to do that. So, and this year is a little bit different because of the Cully v. Marshall case, which, like I said, a lot of people are taking that as an indication that the Supreme Court, I don't think, can actually say, hey, next time we get a civil asset forfeiture case, we're going to strike it down and rule it unconstitutional. But they, reading, when you read the lines in there, I should have pulled it up so I could quote you some. But they are, it's kind of like, this sounds like a shot across the bow, like they're kind of done with it, questioning why we have it, since it chases back to like 1775, and seizing cargo in ports is like, we don't really have that problem. So why are we doing this, especially as it pertains to our citizens? And then specifically in the, referencing the shall not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law. Like, why would we have a different standard here? So it's encouraged. So we're in a different state because, that case could go to court next week. Civil asset forfeiture could be struck down, and then it's like, so to the DAs, I'm trying to, it's like, hey, you should take the deal. It's the best deal you're going to get, but they're, I guess they're confident, they want to ride it out. So, if it does get struck down, then they've got to go back to the legislature and ask 100 people to start muddying, mucking about in the process. It's like, that does not sound, why don't you just tell me what you need fixed in this bill, because I'm willing to work with you. Because it's not anti-law enforcement, it's not anti-prosecution, it's pro-citizen. And then, because we could just say, you must have a criminal conviction, and then not deal with any of the other stuff. But basically all the other pages deal with how to make sure that law enforcement and prosecution has the tools that they need, while ensuring that citizens have their Fifth and 14th Amendment rights. actually honored, I think, in the way that is more constitutionally coherent.
Uh, we have a question from the chat. What kind of power does Governor Polis have over the Dems specifically? And they want to know specifically if that's just a financial connection or if it's just like political favors. Uh, we're just kind of curious, how exactly do those backdoor deals kind of work out? Because I mean, I've heard multiple times where legislators will say, "Hey, you know." The governor might like this, but he doesn't want this run this year. Or the governor wants us to kill this. This is a bad bill. I, and that being said, I've heard that in the past about the governor not liking a bill, but the bill still gets pushed through, and the governor still signs it anyway, even though the rumors are that he does not like that bill.
Yeah, I don't, I have not been invited into, any of the of the back room deals. I know it, he has been referred to by the Democrats as King Polis, just for the overall disdain that he has for the other branches of government. So, um, you know, is he is he the so I don't know. I know, what sounds like, a lot of the bills get, delivered to the to the General Assembly, by a glitter powered unicorn on the rainbow of good intentions, just like bringing these bringing these bills over that are just, absolute nonsense. And then the Democrats are like, yeah, when this bill was brought to me, it was really spoke to me. Like, okay, somebody has an agenda, but I don't know. I don't really know. I know it's financial because there are times where the Democrats will say, well, I have to vote with my caucus, or they will they will primary me. They'll primary out, which, I think is a lack of integrity on their part. I mean, they're elected to do what they feel is the right thing, and when they're going counter to what they know is right, just to maintain their political power, then it's like, well, you're a person that shouldn't be in political power. So it's so who knows
Wow.
how long I'll be there, because I obviously don't play the game very well.
No, definitely really well said. A great indication of how things actually work behind the scenes, right? I mean, it's not what they teach us in our civics classes, even if they even have civics classes anymore. There's such a lack of information out there. Part of the reason we do these live streams, we want to get the public more engaged, get people more aware of what's happening. We have a question in the chat here. We have Rich Guggenheim there says, is Representative DeGraaf allowed to say groomer this year? Because the last year, people don't know, they had a restriction of some of the suggestions, I guess is probably the better way to say it. You tell me if that's wrong, the other way, where they restricted what you were able to say, the kind of verbiage and language you use. Have we seen anything like that this year? And if you could fill people in on what that happened last year.
Yeah, I haven't seen a list of words that we're not supposed to say. I mean, that whole thing kind of backfired when I read Rich's letter on the floor that first day, that I said, this is a letter from gays against groomers, and then got gavelled down. People had to, people ended up abandoning their Twitter accounts and getting off social media. I think I think it definitely helped Rich's recruitment goals there. But no, I have not been told any words that I'm not allowed to say. Because again, that just backfires, because then I just have to work them into the system, because that's a First Amendment. That's definitely a First Amendment thing. So you're not allowed to cuss. You're not supposed to, but yeah. They didn't like Predator the other day. They didn't like that I said Predator. But I just figure, if you don't like the word predator, don't do predatory stuff. That's a pretty easy solution.
Speaking of that, I got a big kick of that. I was listening to that live when you and they gavelled you down and they went to recess, and I'm sure behind the scenes they gave you a nice chewing out. I was wondering if you could actually kind of speak to that and why you said what you said, and if you could give us a bit of a paraphrase of what you said, because I thought what you said meant a lot, and the bill you were discussing, I mean, I think it's a critical bill. It goes right along with a lot of the other things that we've been saying. Kids can't consent. So if you could kind of explain real quick why you said what you said and maybe what you said.
Well, I said it because it's predatory. Um, so they had put this, it was a bill, seemed, kind of innocuous. I talked to Brandy about it. I rely on her for a lot of the medical perspective, as well as my wife, who's an occupational therapist, so I can always ask, get at least a perspective there. But Brandy went down and just said, "Hey, there's this wording in here that so they did in committee the bill, and then they submit, for voting right there at the last minute, right before the bill is, rushed, put in that the to have this language in there that youth and children. So you have these multi agencies that they're trying to coordinate, and one of the things, they have all their records, and there's not, then the thing, that part that they added in there says, not basically nothing would stop, nothing would preclude a child or youth or their family from releasing their medical records. Is like, whoa, a child is like 4 years old. A youth is anything. And I got a breakdown from OLLS on this, and like there are places where youth is less than 26, less than 25, less than 18. It's not coherently used. Family is there's the definition of close family, which is like, your parents, but then but the word is family, and it's not defined in the Title 24. So it's like, well, what definition of family are you looking at? Are you looking at the housing thing of family, where they said family can be anybody that you feel close to, or family could be an aunt, an uncle, a brother, a sister, like, then any of those people could release somebody's medical records. So we tried to remove that. Brandy submitted the amendment to remove, well, because it was a committee report, to block that from being added. Because you can, I think it's always good to just go in and say, like, hey, you probably didn't know this was in here. This is just an unfortunate bit of wording. And then you say, because what's going to happen is you're going to be able to have 4-year-olds provide written consent to release their medical records. Well, I mean, because then you could just like, oh my goodness, we need to remove that, and we need to and we get rid of it, no harm, no foul, dodge that bullet. But then when the Democrats come back and they're like just adamant that that stays in there, well, that then, instead of being inadvertent, becomes, to me anyways, it becomes, that's the purpose of the bill. Like when we had AI, and I tried AI for law enforcement, traffic enforcement, I tried to remove the part where they could sell the AI collected data to another company, where it's going to be kept in these big giant servers forever and ever, and thinking, okay, well, we'll just remove that, because and then it's like, nope, they come to the well and they defend it, and it has to stay in there. It's like, well, now that's a purpose of the bill. So the whatever the bill was actually supposed to solve, the purpose of the bill became those words, that children could release their medical records. So what you have is a Trojan horse gilded with good intentions. That's really around that amendment. I think the purpose of this bill, which is relatively innocuous, is that amendment. It's brought in with the bill, like, oh, this is a good bill, and then you put the amendment. But the amendment is the real purpose, and the purpose is to harvest children's medical records. And of course, once you release your medical records electronically, you can't take it back. There will be kids that are victimized by that, because you don't know what your medical records can be used for forever and ever. And so I said, well, that's going to create victims, and predators create victims. And like I said, they didn't like that I said predators, and my response to that is, don't make victims and you won't be a predator. So I mean, I didn't call anybody specifically a predator. I basically said, if you vote for this, if you vote to keep this language in, you're a predator. And then they made the choice to vote for the bill. So that's not on me.
Well, thank you so much for speaking truth to power. Do you have a couple more minutes, Representative, or do we need to let you go here?
No, I got a couple minutes. I'm just going to get into the Cully v. Marshall decision.
Perfect. Well, definitely appreciate you running House Bill 1067. I mean, what's so great about it is it would basically end civil asset forfeiture in Colorado, requiring this criminal conviction in order to seize somebody's property. I think that's huge. It would be an amazing win for the Constitution, for the rights of Coloradans, because who knows who could become a victim of this. We've seen people where they're taken advantage of by the system, and unfortunately, that's a reality out there. But of
Well, I
course,
think
one of
it's
the
also,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
think, sorry, I think it's also a way to punish political opponents. I mean, I think, um, when you look at it, it's a perfect weapon. Somebody can get arrested, they can have their property seized, they can never get it back. It goes through the system. I talked to one lawyer, and all these multiple systems, and they transferred it over. It's like, where's my property? And they just keep moving it around the system, and then finally send a notice and say, well, you didn't come and get your property, so we destroyed it. It's a it's it but it can be used to you know, and is that the governor's purpose for wanting to keep it? I don't know. I mean, but it can be weaponized. Now, again, it does incentivize the exploitation of citizens. Uh, that it doesn't happen more, I think, is a testament to the overall professionalism of our law enforcement. Because they could. There are some places that use it, I think, a lot more. So I think but the fact that it can be used is still a problem. To say, well, it's not being used, but it could be used, is like, well, then we kind of, we still need to fix it. It's better to fix it before it becomes a problem.
Yes, definitely. And I think, back years ago, there has been some good bills to reform the process of civil asset forfeiture over the years. I know Senator Tim Neville, Senator Vicky Marble as well, back when I was as an aide down at the Capitol. I mean, many, many years ago now, were running some stuff. But yeah, they said the same thing. I mean, they said the sheriffs were their biggest opponents because they love the opportunity to take this money to use it for what they want, what they need, quote unquote, for their department. So it could become this little slush fund where they can seize money from private citizens who are not even convicted of a crime, and then use this money in their own departments. I mean, it's absolutely egregious. Like you said before, it's hard to believe that this is even allowed in our modern day society. But, seeing this progression of this issue over the last several years, for nearly a decade now, have you, and I know this is your second term down there, but have you seen since your first term, since years ago, have you seen any other movement? I mean, does it seem like people are more receptive to reforming criminal or civil asset forfeiture or doing away with it? I mean, do you think there's a shift overall in terms of the attitudes one way or the other?
Yeah, I think just by the nature of that, the bill was, pushed back, and, having meetings with, the, people on judiciary, Democrats on judiciary that want to sit down and talk. And I've been very, open. It's like, this is the lawyer on this Institute for Justice. You can go line of sight direct. You could talk, you can get your questions answered. I'm not trying to hide anything. I just want to get this problem solved. And I think there is a little bit of a realization, probably maybe because of the Cully v. Marshall, that yeah, we probably do actually need to to solve this. And we'll see. So it was going to be this Tuesday, but it's not been put on the schedule yet, so that's good. I mean, if they wanted it just dead, they would just schedule it. So I'm hoping that with some more meetings, that there are people on both sides that are very interested, but they're just very concerned. So on X, I posted the CDAC. It's like, this is how you get a hold of the CDAC. This is how you get a hold of CSOC. I mean, you can get a hold of your legislator as well, but let them know that you're paying attention, and that um, you know you you know you your fifth and 14th Amendment rights are not just inconveniences to them. They are self-evident creator endowed rights. I mean, that's our constitutional way to ensure your self-evident creator endowed rights are not violated. And they need to work around that. So it might require some minor changes in process, but again, the citizens are forced to fight a two-front war. So that's not really a just way to approach governance. And I think it makes cops look bad. I think it, when people think of police and they think of civil asset forfeiture, they get very upset with the police and think it's all on them, when it's really, the police are doing their job to seize the property that might be involved in the crime, and then it's on the DA side to make that all happen. So it's kind of like, and then the DAs just operate on like, well, the police wouldn't have arrested you if you weren't guilty. But we still do have that. We still do have the beyond reasonable doubt, and that you are presumed innocent until proven guilty, because our system would rather release 100 guilty people rather than convict one innocent person, as opposed to, again, the European system that would rather convict 100 innocent than turn one guilty.
Now, Rep. DeGraaf, you just mentioned a little bit ago that there are some representatives in the Judiciary Committee that are still kind of in that questioning phase. They haven't necessarily made up their mind. Who would you suggest that we should be contacting right now? Because I want to make sure that our allies and everybody that we know are reaching out to these individuals, let them know that this is a good bill. We need to support criminal asset forfeiture reform, so that way innocent people don't lose their stuff that they might be in. I mean, here's another thing that we might need to consider is a lot of these people that are dealing with these issues are probably struggling, especially in an economy that the Democrats have kind of created that's not necessarily the greatest to support a family in. And then on top of this, you're having to deal with a garbage a charge thrown at you, and then you lose all of your stuff that you've worked hard for to support your family with. I mean,
that's a very good point. And the median, we got, you have to go back to the median amount is like $799. So say $800. Now that's not the average. This is the median is if you take all 100 cases, the median is that dollar value that's in the middle, right? It's not averaging them all together and dividing it by 100, which might be higher, but it's just showing you that, the majority of the cases are less. At least 50% of these cases are less than $79. And I know that is there access to the kings that have the house above and those are all what's happening is that they're get $30 those assets and fees can't get $2 to work. And if it's $100 you get $7 but they are work. So others can sell to their property right. Yeah, one of the money is black and part like yes nonsense with evaluating to $10 and so our so we want to have these they told on the money there support us I so not windmills and so we have to evaluate the supposed to be spoken for longer so that that their legislators are trying to figure out how to put their head fixed and get out for specs. So to be better for a lot from the and set some harsh just long but if you start talking we have to fund not put in as they actually have to go
appreciate them. There's a city that are fighting.
And was also when they was being able to send some people we need to have in respect and try to we need a advice. Agree.
Keep repeat the is you have this day be there and be authorized there and double mention keep the report for the for sure about it and work in there. Or quite a little bit of the loss. Not exactly where, but keep the people call in the middle of the work either.
I think it's cool to get link this on the farm.
Straight to you, which is also supposed to be because you are doing the and just get three. There's increasing this range and share a bit of over the I like to simple where I battle the passive pistol or tracks and still call it. It doesn't work in general.
Absolutely, it's typical of watching friends with at least in all and really necessary. Need to assess your insertion tag rate. This is kind of all it's space as you regular ball. You there's no reason why these individuals could use that rate. Just know the the additional and work all come to that's